Now, it doesn't matter if you're buying a little 300 horsepower diesel or a pair of 1500 horsepowers in a 70, 80 foot boat. Today we're going to go through our 7 steps to follow when buying a used marine diesel engine. If you follow these steps, all the principles hold true and you'll have the best chance going forward to buy a good engine. Step 1, service history. I feel like I'm always harping out on this one, but it's something you can do without even being on board the boat. You request the history and you have a look for, firstly, if it's regular, and secondly, has the owner been doing scheduled maintenance or breakdown maintenance? If you see a heap of receipts for some breakdown maintenance, you're going to know that there's something going on in that engine bay that isn't supposed to be. If you see regular servicing at regular intervals, as per the service manual, you're going to be onto a winner. Every single engine will have a owner's manual, and in that owner's manual, you can find the regular servicing intervals, find out when the engine oil is meant to be changed, when the cooling system needs to be done, and what the manufacturer recommends and when. Step 2 is assessing the engine for external corrosion. Now this involves actually getting on the boat and looking in the engine bay. Have a look around in areas that aren't quite easy to access. Get your phone out, use the camera and the flash. Typically, I would start at the bottom of the engine and have a look for tide lines, corrosion to the sump, and then work my way up. As you work your way up, you might see things that have leaked and dripped down, and these are all things you need to take into consideration so you can get a general idea on the condition of the external side of the engine. Number 3 is external leaks on the engine. Now this involves getting in the engine bay whilst the engines are running under load and looking around. I understand that's not always possible on some boats, but where possible, you need to do this. Have a look at things like hoses, aftercoolers, heat exchangers, water pumps. Anywhere you can see a stain or a corrosion stain, have a look around that area and you might be surprised with where water is actually currently still leaking out of. Step number 4 is completing a satisfactory sea trial and checking that the engines achieve their rated RPM. Most manufacturers will have a plaque on the engine somewhere saying this engine makes this much horsepower at this RPM. When the boat's built from the factory, they match the propellers to the engine and the hull so that the engine can achieve these speeds. If you don't achieve this speed, you've likely got either an external factor, things like barnacles or growth on the bottom of the boat, or an internal problem with the engine, things like turbos, injectors, etc., that needs to be further investigated. The first thing before you even start the sea trial is to make sure that the engine alarm works, because when all of this is going on, you need to be alerted if something happens like an overtemp or a low oil pressure. Throughout the sea trial, you need to be looking at a number of other things too, such as the oil pressure, if there's any vibration, are there any strange sounds, is there any water leaking, which was in the last step, and lastly, if there's any smoke that shouldn't be there. Number 5 is checking the engine temperature. Now this will be done on the sea trial, but it's important you first find out what the manufacturer recommends the engine runs at, and secondly, that it does run at that. A lot of people drag out their cooling system service, which in turn puts more wear on the engine because it's running at higher temperatures that it's not designed to do. Number 6 is blow-by. Now on most diesels, you can just pop a rocker cover cap and visually see how much blow-by the engine has. In twin engine setups, you're gonna have an engine on the other side to compare it to, and you'll straight away be able to tell if it's excessive. Before you go doing expensive diagnostics, finding out the cause of the blow-by, it's important you start with something simple, like a breather, so that you're not wasting time on things that can be fixed a lot easier. So the last piece to this puzzle, number 7, is taking engine oil samples. It's important if you're gonna consider doing this that you know when the oil was last changed, because you might be sampling fresh oil that's not gonna tell you anything. Ideally, the oil's been in there for at least a year and you've got some history of how many hours it's been ran for. I don't know how many times I've been surprised, but if you have no service history and you take an oil sample and you find salt water in the engine, you'll be grateful that you took that oil sample. Lastly, I think it's important that you consider all of these things relative to the age of the boat. Now, if you're buying a 20-year-old boat, there's likely gonna be some of these things showing up, and it's important that you put them into perspective, because if you don't buy this boat and you go and look at another 20-year-old boat, you're gonna have a different set of the same problems. Now there's just one last thing I need you to do, step number 8, which is annihilate the subscribe and like button. If you guys get on board and give it a hit, I'll keep putting out content and we can keep talking about boats and engines.